Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are doing something a little different. Usually we're looking at modern tech stacks or maybe psychology or,
Historical events.
right, history.
Yeah.
But today we are looking at a text that has been around for 2,000 years, specifically an analysis of the 5th chapter of Ephesians from the Bible. And stick with me here because we aren't reading this as some dusty ancient scroll or just a history lesson.
No, and that is really what makes the source material we are looking at today so interesting. It analyzes this text as a complete system update for human life.
A system update. I really like that framing. It implies our current operating system might be, a bit buggy.
Or outright obsolete. I mean, the source frames this chapter as if you are receiving the technical specifications for a new life homework system. It's not just a list of do this, don't do that. It's a completely new architecture for how a human being actually functions in the world.
Which is a pretty bold claim. I mean, usually when people hear ancient texts, they think of arbitrary rules or just cultural baggage. But the mission of this deep dive is to see if we can parse the logic behind it. The source argues this text answers a fundamental question. What actually happens when a person walks from darkness into light?
Exactly. And to be clear, when the text says darkness into light, it's not talking about a mood shift. It's not about thinking positively or having a good vibes only kind of mindset.
So it's not just a filter you put on your Instagram photo.
Far from it. The source argues this is a change of world entirely. It's a transformation of identity. It's like unplugging a computer from a closed intranet and connecting it to the open internet. The hardware might look exactly the same, but the functionality is totally different.
Right.
And as we unpack this, we're going to look at three core contrasts, or conflict zones, really, that the source highlights. Sacrificial love versus selfish greed. Light versus darkness. And wisdom versus ignorance.
Okay, let's boot up this new operating system then. We have to start with what the source calls the core code. The very first instruction in this section drops a massive, arguably crushing command: imitate God.
Yeah, it doesn't really get much higher profile than that.
High profile, it sounds impossible. Honestly, when I read that, my skepticism kicked in immediately. Imitate God. It feels like being told to, I don't know, imitate the galaxy. I am a finite, flawed human being. God is, by definition, infinite. Trying to run God software on human hardware sounds like a recipe for a total system crash.
And if you interpret it as a power play, you are absolutely right. If you try to imitate God's omnipotence, his power, his control over the universe, you will crash. You'll either become a tyrant or a complete nervous wreck.
Right, the micromanager everyone hates who thinks they can control everything.
Exactly. But the source points out a really critical nuance here. The text doesn't say imitate God as a rival power. It says imitate God as dearly loved children.
As children, okay, that changes the dynamics.
Think about it. When a kid puts on their dad's oversized work boots and stomps around the living room, they aren't trying to be the dad in terms of paying the mortgage or driving the car.
Right, they aren't carrying the existential weight of adulthood.
No, they aren't imitating the power. They are imitating the character. They are mimicking the walk.
So it's relational, not functional.
Precisely. The source argues that this impossible standard is actually about imitating a very specific feature of God, which is love. And again, we have to be careful here because love is a word we use for everything from pizza to our spouses.
Right. I love tacos and I love my wife. Hopefully very different emotional states.
Hopefully. The source defines this specific God-imitating love very clearly. It is the kind of love where Christ sacrificed himself as an offering. It is a specific sacrificial action.
So it's not the rom-com butterflies in the stomach feeling.
No, it's not. It is the active choice to let go of yourself for the sake of others. The source uses a really great analogy here. If you think of this sacrificial love as the North Pole star, that everything else in this operating system revolves around it, it is the navigation point.
And if you aren't orienting by that star, you aren't running the software.
You're lost. Exactly.
Okay, so if sacrificial love is the North Star, that helps explain the next part of the source material. We move from the core code to what I'm calling the incompatible software. The text lists a bunch of things to absolutely avoid: greed, immorality, bad speech.
Standard thou shalt not stuff, usually.
Usually, yes. But looking at this through the lens of a system update, it feels quite different. The source points out that these aren't just random rules meant to ruin your weekend. There's a common thread connecting greed, immorality, and filthiness.
Right. The common thread is that they are extremely self-centered behaviors.
They are the anti-love.
Exactly. If the core code is sacrificial love-giving of yourself for others, then greed, is the exact opposite code. It is consuming others for yourself. You literally can't run both programs at the same time. They are fundamentally incompatible.
The source had a very vivid metaphor for this. It said that for a person trying to live by this new light OS, engaging in these behaviors is like wearing a very expensive gown to go to hell and back.
It's a striking image, isn't it?
It really is. It suggests that doing these things isn't just breaking a rule. It's a category error. It's a complete mismatch of identity, like wearing a tuxedo to a mud wrestling match. It just doesn't make sense for who you are supposed to be.
And we need to drill down on greed specifically, because the source highlights something very surprising here.
Hmm?
The text actually equates a greedy person with an idolater.
Yeah, I caught that. Idolatry. That feels a bit dramatic, doesn't it? I mean, checking my stock portfolio too often might make me anxious, but it doesn't make me a pagan worshiping a golden statue.
That's the modern misunderstanding of the word. The source argues that idolatry isn't really about statues at all. It's about ultimate concern.
Ultimate concern.
It asks the question, what is the thing that makes you feel safe? What is the thing that, if you lost it tomorrow, would make you feel like your life is completely over?
Ah, so it's about security.
Exactly.
Mm.
If your sense of safety, your future, and your significance come from your bank balance, then functionally, that money is playing the role of God in your life. It's what you actually trust.
Wow. So the source equates the greedy person with the idolater because both have replaced the creator with a created thing as their primary source of stability.
It's a fundamental software error regarding where your security comes from. It upgrades a character defect to outright betrayal. If money is your master, you can't be a servant of love. You will eventually sacrifice people to get more money. That's why the text calls it idolatry. It's a total replacement of the central operating principle.
Okay, that makes total sense. It's not just about being stingy. It's a faith-level issue of priority. Now let's pivot to the other incompatible software the source mentions, which is speech. The text mentions a strict prohibition on ridicule and vulgarity.
It does.
But what I loved was the solution it offered. The text doesn't just say zip your lip or be serious all the time. It suggests a replacement. Gratitude.
This was honestly one of the most profound insights in the source material for me. It reframes gratitude completely.
How so? Because usually gratitude is just good manners. You say thank you when the barista hands you your coffee.
Right, that's just social politeness. But the source argues that gratitude in this context is actually a defensive
A
mechanism.
defense mechanism, like a firewall.
Exactly like a firewall. The idea is that the best way to fight negative speech, ridicule, harshness, cynical stupidity isn't just repression. You can't just white-knuckle your way into permanent silence. You have to crowd it out.
So it's an issue of volume.
It's about capacity. If your heart is full of gratitude, if you are constantly recognizing the good things you've been given, there is literally no disk space left for the trash talk to survive.
That is a really cool way to look at it. It's not about holding back the bad words. It's about converting the internal state so the bad words have nowhere to take root.
Right. It changes the input, which inherently changes the output. You aren't just being polite, you are mathematically protected. There is simply no room for the malware to execute.
So we have the core code of love, and we have identified the incompatible malware of greed and bad speech. Now let's talk about the system upgrade itself, the transition from darkness to light.
This is really the central pivot of the entire chapter.
The source makes a big deal about the distinction here. It says this isn't an improvement in degree, it's a change in nature.
Yes. The analogy used is walking from a windowless basement directly into the outdoor sun.
Which is a massive shift.
It is. It's not just that the room got a little brighter. Your entire perception of the whole world changes. Darkness, in this text, isn't just nighttime. It's described as a state of ignorance, of hiding. Light is entering the state of truth, seeing the nature of things clearly.
And like any good operating system, this light has an output. The source calls it the application program.
I like that framing. The app here produces 3 specific things: goodness, justice, and honesty.
Goodness being acts of kindness. Justice meaning meeting God's standard of right and wrong. And honesty or truth is about loyalty and transparency.
Right. These aren't abstract floating concepts. If you are running the Light OS, these are the active programs that should be running in the background constantly. They convert the abstract concept of light into something you can actually see and interact with.
Now here is where we hit a bit of a snag, and I think for a modern listener, this is probably the hardest part of the text to digest. The source discusses the instruction to blame or expose those who are in darkness.
Verse 11. It says, "Do not participate in the unfruitful deeds of darkness, but instead even expose them.
I have to be honest, that language sets off alarm bells for me. In today's culture, exposing people usually means canceling them. It sounds intensely judgmental. It sounds like being a moral policeman going around saying, I'm right, you're wrong, and I'm going to tell everyone on the internet about it.
It feels full of gunpowder.
It does. It feels like the exact opposite of the sacrificial love we just talked about.
And the source acknowledges that risk completely. But it offers a crucial correction on how we are supposed to interpret blame or expose here. It shifts the focus from accusation to manifestation.
Unpack that for me. What's the difference?
Well, think about the actual physics of light. Does a lamp attack the darkness? Does it scream at the shadows?
No, just shines.
Exactly. Light exposes darkness simply by existing. The source suggests that a child of light lives in such a distinct way that their very life acts as a mirror.
A mirror.
Yes. By living out that application program, goodness, justice, honesty, you reveal the essence of the darkness around you without necessarily saying a single word.
Okay, so if I'm in a workplace where everyone is cooking the books or lying to clients, and I simply refuse to do it and tell the truth?
Your honesty exposes their dishonesty. You don't have to preach a sermon in the break room. Your life provides the stark contrast that makes the darkness visible.
That is a really powerful distinction. It takes the weapon out of your hand and puts the responsibility entirely on your character.
It does. It's not about being a vocal critic on the tongue. It's about being an active reflector with your life. But that requires you to be fully awake to what's happening.
Which leads right into that wake-up call in verse 14. Wake up, sleeper.
Wake up, sleeper. It's an alarm clock. The source describes those in darkness as being spiritually numb or merely pretending to sleep. This call is a demand to stop pretending. Stop being numb.
Okay, so we are awake, we are out of the basement, we are trying to run this new software. Now we need the user manual. The source identifies the final section, verses 15 to 20, as the practical tips for daily operation.
And the main headline for this section is walk wisely.
Which means what exactly in practical terms?
It means don't live by feeling or sheer habit. The source explicitly says, don't be like a fool. A wise person consciously inspects their behavior to see what actually pleases God. They don't just run on autopilot.
And there is a real-time management component here too, right? The text says redeeming the time because the days are evil.
Yes.
The days are evil. That sounds incredibly ominous. It sounds like something out of a dystopian novel.
It is ominous, but think of evil here as simply hostile to your purpose. The source argues that the default state of the world, the market of our time, so to speak, is actively designed to waste your life.
That actually sounds very modern. We talk about the attention economy all the time on this show. Algorithms literally designed to keep you scrolling, wasting hours on things that fundamentally don't matter.
Precisely. That is the evil day. It's a passive, invisible current dragging you toward nothingness. To redeem the time literally means to buy it out of the market.
A buyback.
Yes. You have to aggressively snatch your time back from the distractions and repurpose it for something true. You are seizing an opportunity to light a lamp in a very dark room. It's not about just being productive and making more money. It's about living out truth.
So it's not just time management, it's time rescue.
Yes. You are rescuing your Tuesday afternoon from entropy. Every act of truth is precious because the entire environment is hostile to it.
Now, to wrap up the user manual, we have to talk about the control mechanism. The source highlights a visual comparison in verse 18 that is kind of funny but also incredibly deep. It contrasts getting drunk with being filled with the Spirit.
It puts them on opposite ends of the exact same scale.
Why compare alcohol and the Holy Spirit? Is it just a basic don't party message?
It's much deeper than that. Both are things that fill you and directly affect your control.
Okay. I see where this is going.
The source analyzes it as a fundamental choice of leadership. Who do you give the wheel of life to?
The wheel of life.
Think about what alcohol does to a person. It's a depressant. It lowers your inhibitions. It numbs your judgment. If you give the wheel to alcohol, you are driving toward a complete loss of control.
You're crashing the car.
Right. But being filled with the Spirit is the exact opposite. It's not a loss of control. It's a heightening of awareness.
Yeah.
It provides clear guidance to God's will.
So the real question is, what is influencing your driver's seat? Are you under the influence of something that numbs you to reality or someone that wakes you up to it?
Exactly. And the source points out that being filled with the Spirit isn't just some private mystical experience where you sit alone in a room vibrating at a higher frequency.
No, and this brings us full circle. The output of being filled with the Spirit flows right back into the community. The text talks about singing, poetry, and shared praise.
It circles back to gratitude again.
It does.
A spirit-filled life overflows in gratitude towards others and God. It's that defensive mechanism we talked about earlier, but now it's shared. It's a community-wide operating system.
So let's zoom out and look at this whole package. We started with an abstract command to imitate God. That felt impossible. But then we downloaded the specific software, which is sacrificial love. We identified the malware of greed and bad speech and saw how gratitude is the ultimate firewall against them. We walked out of the basement of darkness into the sunlight, learned how to be a mirror rather than a judge, and finally got the user manual on how to rescue our time from the attention economy and keep the right driver at the wheel.
It really is a transformation from the inside out. It's comprehensive.
It's not just a cold rule list, it's a call to bravery.
That's the word, bravery. It takes immense courage to live out truth in a complex world.
And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave everyone with today. The source material ended on a really interesting tension. We live in a deeply polarized world. We talked about exposing the darkness. But we know that often trying to expose the truth just leads to conflict, fighting, and frankly, more darkness.
It's a very real danger. We can easily turn light into a weapon.
Exactly. So the question the source leaves us with is this. How do we balance the responsibility of being light, of revealing darkness, with a man to act in love? How can we ensure we are a light that reveals truth rather than a laser used to burn others?
That is the daily challenge. Light without love is harsh. Love without light is just sentimentality. The goal is to hold them together perfectly.
It is. And it's something for you to mull over the next time you have a choice between speaking out or acting out this new operating system. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.